All right, picking up where we left off, in this video we're going to talk about adding vector data to a map and styling that vector data. Before we dive in, let's talk a little bit about the place that we're going to be mapping. Some of you may have been up to Lake George, about 30-40 minutes north of here. Beautiful lake, some of the cleanest water in the state/country. And right in the middle, sort of the central part of the lake, is this amazing island called Dome Island. It's been protected from human access entirely, essentially, since the 1950s. So beautiful old growth trees, no access for anyone, whether you're paddling out there, you can't set foot on that island. Professor Chris Covey, environmental studies and scientist, has been working with the Nature Conservancy on some amazing mapping projects on Dome Island. So we have some really cool data for the island and a rare chance for Skidmore students to actually set foot on this exclusively natural system. So this is Dome Island right here in the middle of the lake. Just a little context. And we're scrolling through right here. This platform we're looking at is a story map. This is something that you all have the opportunity to work with. This was developed by Jacob, an environmental studies and sciences student this summer. So here's state of New York. We're going to zoom in. Here's Lake George. I'm going to zoom in one step further. Boom, there's Dome Island. This is what we're going to be mapping. And Dome Island is a product of the last ice age. So you can see this is the extent of the Laurentide ice sheet. There's Dome Island right there. It's sort of a classic glacial drumlin. It follows sort of the shape of this conceptual diagram actually really closely. All right, we're going to go back over to QGIS now and work with some of this data. So hopefully you have been watching the last couple videos. You have a base map loaded into your onto your QGIS project, and you have set up your project home folder with data downloaded from the spring. So I'm going to show you a few different ways we can add vector data to the map. The easiest way, in my opinion, is using browser and let's just grab Dome Bound. I'm just going to bring it down onto our layers tab right here. So I don't see it showing up, but that's probably because it's really small and it's nestled within Lake George here. Let's zoom in to that layer by right-clicking on the layer, right over here on our layers, right-clicking on the layer and clicking Zoom to Layer. Okay, so it looks like we have our Google base map in the background here, and our Dome Bound is covering up this little island here, Dome Island. So in my layers, I can turn visibility of a layer off and on with this checkbox. And I can also drag my layers up and down. For example, sometimes you may add a layer to your map and your base map may, for some reason, be up above the layer you've just added, in which case this wouldn't be visible because it's drawn underneath this other layer. So you simply just have to move it up onto the top. All right. Now we've got this is a boundary layer. So generally with a boundary layer, you want to have no fill. You want this sort of inside part to be transparent and have sort of a thicker border around the edge. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to click on Dome Bound, and I'm going to go to Layer Styling, that other tab that I set up. I'm going to make this a little bit wider so I can see everything here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to my layer styling up here. We're just doing single symbol, which means just one color for every single feature in our map here. I'm going to click on Simple Fill. And then over here on the side, you can see, I'm going to expand this a little bit so we can see this a little bit better. I have my fill color, which is the inside here, and my stroke color, which is sort of the border or the outline. So I'm going to take my fill color and I'm going to select transparent fill. So that fill all of a sudden went away. I'm going to take my stroke color and I want to make it white. So I'm just going to go on this triangle here, bring it all the way down white. And maybe I'll make it a little bit thicker here so it pops a little bit more. If I wanted to make this border a little bit transparent, I can set the transparency of it right down here at the bottom. You see how that goes more and more transparent? Pretty cool. Okay. So we've got our border with no fill, and we've changed this to a white outline. All right, now I'm going to show you another way to add vector data in. I want to add this dome trees layer in. Now I could just click it and drag it onto the map, and that's what I hope you will do in the future. But there are a couple other ways. One, we can go up to Layer and click on Data Source Manager, or you can hit Control-L. Now we're in here, and we have a bunch of different options here for how to add data. We can add vector data, raster data, delimited text. These are probably the three types of data we'll be adding in most: vector, raster, delimited text. Delimited text would be like data in a spreadsheet that we're trying to add to our map. So you got to make sure if you're adding vector data, you want to select vector. If you're adding raster data, you want to select raster. If you try to add vector data into the raster tab, it won't work. Similarly with vector, if you try to add raster data here, it won't work. So if I want to add some vector data here, I'm going to click vector. I'm going to click on my vector data sets. I'm going to go to my desktop GIS folder, go into dome data, and this is where it gets a little confusing here. With the browser, we only see the single shapefile that's associated with all of these different files. But when we're doing it this way, we need to come in and we need to find this one. So we're adding the dome trees file, but we need to find the one that is an SHP file. And so in type, you can see this is an SHP file right here, dometrees.shp. So we can select it that way. We can also filter it. If we click on all files right here, and we say, only show me Esri shapefiles. Ta-da, there we go, only showing me Esri shapefiles. I'll click on dome trees, and I'll click open. And then you have to click add. It's gonna give you a little transformation warning. We'll talk about this in some of our next videos. I'm gonna click OK. And then I'm gonna click close. Now we can see here, this is a map of all of the trees on Dome Island. Two environmental studies students, Seb and Siddharth, this summer mapped every single tree on Dome Island. I think there are about 4,000 on Dome Island. Measured the diameter of the trees and the species. It's a really, really cool data set. And we'll be exploring it a little bit more further on in the semester. So that's kind of hard to see right now. Those points to me look a little bit big. So I want to work on some layer styling here to make it a little bit more legible. So I'm going to click on layer styling. And again, I want to be able to modify the fill and the boundaries. So I have to click on this simple marker sign, not just marker, but on simple marker. So under symbol layer type, I could choose a bunch of different marker types. I'm just going to stick with simple, just like a nice simple circle. I'm going to make it a little bit, make these a little bit smaller. That sort of allows me to see the scatter here a little bit better. That fill color is fine for me because they're trees, they should be green. But that stroke color, I think I'm going to select green on the wheel here, and I'm going to go with like a really dark green. I think that might look nice. And I'm going to click apply. So now we have all of our trees on the map here. I'm going to show you one more thing before we wrap up this video, and that is how to do some slightly more advanced symbology. So I know that this dome trees layer has a bunch of extra information embedded with it. If I right click on this, and click Open Attribute Table, I can see that there's not just a point location, but each point has a whole bunch of information about those trees, right? So we have DBH, which is the diameter at breast height of each tree. So how big is each tree? We have, is the tree deciduous or coniferous? Do we have the species of each tree? So if I wanted to, instead of just doing a single symbol for each of these, I could select graduated for numeric data or categorize for categorical data. So example of categorical data would be tree species, right? They're in different categories. They don't have numbers associated with them. So it would be assigning a different color for each species type. Graduated would be assigning colors on a scale based on numeric value. So for example, I'm going to select graduated. You notice nothing shows up because I haven't selected what value to assign. So if I select DBH, for example, then I have to come down here and click classify. I will now be showing all my points. Select a green color palette. The points that are dark green, we can look at a little legend here, are big trees, and the points that are sort of whitish or lighter green are little trees. I'm going to come back to my single symbol, and I'm just going to put it back to my sort of light green color, and call it that for the purposes of our map making. But I just wanted to show you that you can. There are a lot of different options for visualizing this type of data, and we'll get into a lot of that later on in the semester. All right, from here, we'll move on to adding raster data, and then we'll do some map layout. See you soon.